Blog Talk Radio.
The purple angel, oh purple angel, you're next to me. Purple angel, oh purple angel, you're next to me. You're next to me. You're next to me.
Well, hello and welcome everyone to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and the founder of Alzheimer Speaks, which is an advocacy group-based company providing multiple platforms to shift our dementia care culture from crisis to comfort around the world. And we couldn't do what we're doing without you. I want you to know how important your likes and shares and tweets are with the information that we push out to you. Taking that, couple of seconds to share with your circle of friends, your tribes out there is critically important. This is a topic that so many people are uncomfortable talking about, and the more information we can get out there, the easier it's going to be for them to join the conversation and get the support they so rightly deserve. There are a lot of resources out there that people just don't know about, and we need to help them. We need to help connect the dots, and that's really why Alzheimer Speaks was developed. You see, my mom had dementia for 30 years, so I totally get this run. It's not an easy thing for any of us to deal with, and over half of my life, I found I was kind of shocked that there were so many things out there in terms of resources, but nobody really knew they were there. And so Alzheimer Speaks was created to lift everyone's voice and getting us together on the same page to share knowledge. I'm a firm believer that knowledge is absolutely critical. What works, what doesn't work, and again, having the conversation. And so through Alzheimer Speaks, the radio show is one of our platforms that we do every Tuesday from 10 to noon Central Time. That might be a little different where you are, but all of our shows are recorded, so you can listen to them anytime. You can push them out and share them with your friends. And today's show, we're going to focus the first hour on open mic. So I encourage you to call in to have a conversation on whatever topic is passionate to you. What questions do you have? I'm not saying I'm going to have all the answers. None of us do, but let's have the conversation. I do want to mention a couple other resources that we have. We also do Dementia Chats, which is a webinar platform that engages conversation. On Dementia Chats, our experts are people who actually have the disease. Again, another thing I was so frustrated with, why are we guessing at what it's like to have dementia when we have this rich resource right in front of us? So our experts will answer your questions the best they can. They don't always agree, which is like life in general. Not everything is going to work for everybody all the time. There is no silver bullet to this disease. So please keep that in mind. We do Dementia Chats on the second and the fourth Tuesday of the month in the afternoon. You can go to alzheimerspeaks.com and just find information on our About page regarding that. We also have a resource directory, which is a two-way resource directory, which is something very different. But I wanted to build something collaborative. And so what we have is something that you can search, but something that you can also input your information. So if you are a business or have some type of service or product or tool that you feel is helpful for others, you can become a member of Alzheimer Speaks. That gives you access then to input your information into the directory. In addition, if you run across a book or maybe a video or a conference that you want to share with others, you can also put that information in. Alzheimer's Speaks isn't about ownership, it's about collaboration. What else can I tell you? The Purple Angel Project, very dear to my heart. That is the new global symbol for dementia. You can get information on our website there. We're actually doing some updates for that. So in the next probably 2 weeks, you'll see a relaunch of the Purple Angel, which will give us a lot more information for the U.S. here. We're going to kind of be the launching pad for that because it's just gotten so big. Poor Norms and Jane, who started this, have done just a magnificent job. Can't handle it all. So there's a team of us here that will be working with people in the U.S. to help get that launched. There's also information on the Memory Cafe concept, another concept which came from the UK, which was beautifully gifted to us. So lots of information that we have that we always love to share with our audience. So if you haven't checked us out, please go to alzheimersspeaks.com. Before I open the mic, and I see we've got a couple people on the line already, so I want to say thank you and just hang tight. I will get with you here shortly. I also like to mention Alzheimer's Disease International. People are always wondering, where's the closest Alzheimer's Association for me? Where can I find some resources and support groups? And the Alzheimer's Association is one great mode for that. The Alzheimer's Disease International will give you not only all the locations around the world so you can find out what's closest to you, but you will also be able to find global information and data that is so critical for all of us as well. So just to keep that in mind. The Alzheimer's Studies Group still has a couple of studies open, the Tau trial in its third trial, and then they have a new one for the frontal temporal lobe dementia. The Lewy Body Association and the Frontal Temporal Lobe and the National Aphasia Association are really important organizations because they give us specific information for different types of dementia. Alzheimer's isn't the only dementia out there, and so we have to be very aware of that and understand that as well. And then, of course, we've got Music First with Choral Health, which is your prescription to music that can help change moods. Puzzle with Me with Jane Snyder, whose mother had dementia, and she decided to pull together a puzzle that was more age appropriate. It also is much easier to handle for older adults and very durable, smaller pieces. So lots and lots of good things there with Puzzle with Me. I saw on the website it looks like there's a couple of new puzzles that have rolled out. So if you're not familiar with that, that's something that you may also want to check into as well. And then Jiminy Wicket with Jim Creasy. His dad had dementia, adapted the game of croquet to make it easier for people with dementia to still engage. And I've had an opportunity to play that game. Our own Memory Cafe, Arthur's Memory Cafe, has played that. We've got an ice cream social coming up. I'm sure we'll be playing that again. Very fun. But James goes into school systems and matches them up with memory care units so they play one-on-one. It's a great educational tool as well as a lot of fun. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pull in our first caller here. I've got somebody from a 215 number. 215, you're live and on the air. Do you want to state your name?
Michael Ellenbogen.
Well, hello, Mr. Michael. How the heck are you doing today?
Doing good, Lori. How about yourself?
I am doing fantastic. I just came back from a trip down in Georgia where I was at the Alzheimer's Music Fest down in Marietta, Georgia. Was able to stay with some friends and had some great meetings with people. So I'm kind of coming off a big high. So very fun, but not as high as what I hear you are. Why don't you tell people what you just did?
Well, as you know, I have been preaching, I guess, the last couple of years that, all because you have dementia doesn't mean you can't live life to the fullest, and I encourage that. And this past weekend, I actually kind of got pushed out of an airplane at 12,500 feet. And it was exciting, I have to tell you. One thing about dementia is, I used to be able to get on my roof and take care of everything. In the last, I guess, 5 years, I've become afraid of heights. In fact, a couple years ago, I almost had to be taken off the roof by the fire department because I think it was the fear itself that got me down, the embarrassment of thinking that they were going to have to have the fire department out. So I was really kind of concerned about going up in the plane and doing a parachute jump, but I figured, hey, once I step out of there, there's no turning back. So
That's for sure.
I went and did this, and I got to tell you, I loved it. I would love to do it again. I mean, it was so great and such a fabulous view and so quiet up there, and I just can't say enough about it. As you've seen, I had shared the video with you, and my wife, in fact, did want to do this, but I think towards the very end of the day, because we actually had to wait for 9 hours there because the weather was not cooperating with us. It was too windy at first. But I think by the end of the day, she actually would have probably done it herself if we had her scheduled for it.
Uh-huh. I have had more friends jump out of a plane. Now, for those listeners who don't know Michael has been living with dementia for, how long have you been living with dementia, Michael? It's been several years.
Well, actually diagnosed in 2008, so since 2008.
Okay, but you were having symptoms prior to that as well. So I just think that that's absolutely fantastic that you were brave enough to kind of overcome a fear and do it, and then found it just exhilarating. So kudos to you for checking it off your bucket list. I haven't. It's on mine, but I haven't done it yet. But boy, like I said, I have friends just jumping out of planes right and left, and I'm seeing these videos, and they are just saying how exhilarating it is, and how free it feels. So it's getting pushed up there in my in my numbers to do. I'm going to have to join the club, I think, here pretty soon. So
you definitely have to do it.
That is wonderful. Now, along with jumping out of planes, you jumped into NAPA, which is our National Alzheimer's plan, and you spoke before that team here just recently, and actually not just you, but you and your wife. And I have to say, kudos to you. You were extremely brave in the comments that you made because you were brutally honest, which I'm sure not everyone appreciated. But we can't be doing this political dance. It doesn't get us anywhere anymore. Somebody's got to cut to the chase, and so I really appreciate you taking that step and saying what you felt was needed. Do you want to share with people a little bit about your speech?
Sure. I don't have it in front of me or anything like that, and I don't know if you want to play that, but basically, I got to tell you, I found it very frustrating because, one of the things that I do before I normally give my speech, I actually have friends who are actually on the NAPA committee, and I usually share it with at least, my friends there to get their feedback before I do it, and I knew it was going to be strong, Lori, and, I even asked them, I said, should I tone it down a bit? And I was encouraged not to. In fact, they said, it needs to be heard.
Yep.
And while they agreed, ahead of time that, and they were kind of upset about it in itself, but they felt that it deserved to be heard because it was facts. So, I got, and I also shared it with one or two other people who were close to me, and they also agreed. So I got to tell you, it took me by excuse me, it took me by surprise when I guess the people on the committee, after it was read, expressed. Some of the folks were kind of upset about it. That I guess my comments, some of them felt wasn't deserved, and I cannot understand, to be honest with you, why they felt that way. Because in 3 years, I have a lot of respect for those people. I really do, who are on the committee, and but it's at the same time, they took a poll out, I guess, about a month ago or 2 months ago, and they asked people in the United States what they felt this disease was about, what dementia was about. And the majority of people, I think it was 59%, said that it was just about memory loss. So for a group who is responsible for the whole entire United States to making awareness, I believe they have failed. They literally have failed. Because nobody, to be honest with you, even people in the arena of dementia, they rarely know what NAPA is even about. So right there they have failed. 2, they have failed to get people to understand what Alzheimer's is and what dementia is in the United States. So I just don't understand how they feel that they've done all they can have done. And, there's many excuses that were thrown to me, like, well, the Alzheimer's Association is doing a good part of that. And I'm like, well, you know what? The Alzheimer's Association is in charge with this big task to educate the whole United States. They have been assigned of this task. And, yes, the Alzheimer's Association, while they're doing a decent job, they also have failed, in my eyes, to a certain point of getting all the message. And it's not their responsibility to do it all. There's a dollar sum that comes along with this. And this, to me, is something the federal government must take on, and they must take it on with 100% wanting to do this. They give me a lot of excuses why they're incapable of doing it all. And you know what? I just can't deal with the excuses any longer. Not after 3 years. To me, they
actually,
have to have.
It's been a heck of a lot longer than 3 years, that they've been in existence. And the thing is, with this whole process, you're exactly right. We need to do things faster. We have to be more people-centric and understand the people's language. But I think we so often get tied into having the perfect plan and the perfect way, and anyone who's dealt with dementia or is dealing with dementia knows perfect does not exist. And if you're honest, it doesn't in your life before dementia either. But we have this thing where everything has to be just right and it has to be so planned instead of just getting out there and starting. You look at what Norms has done with the Purple Angel Project. One man with dementia in the UK saying, let's have a conversation. And that conversation has spread now around the world with its own symbol, for dementia. So it's got a global grounding. And he's done it with no budget. There are ways to get this done that it seems like they refuse to look at because of everything has to be so controlled. And you know what? Disease isn't controlled. It ebbs and it flows, and it attacks everybody, and there's not a protection against it. And so, to me, the best protection is just start. Excuse my language, but start the damn conversation, and get people talking about this, and from there, you can build and align with people with passion instead of just those that are there because it's their job or they want the status, of being attached to a big movement. And that's where I get really frustrated. I like you. I'm tired of the excuses. There's so many people doing so many things, but nobody knows about them because no one has the power to elevate them. And little old me, I mean, that's what I'm trying to do, and I'm putting a dent in things, but it's difficult, because we're battling big entities that want to do it all, and none of us can do it all. It really has to be shared insights, shared passions, shared skills. I don't know. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do, and part of it, Lori, I believe, some of the excuses they gave me was that they didn't feel that they had the power to do a lot of this stuff, and they're so wrong. I mean, first of all, President Obama created this group because they wanted feedback on what to do in the United States, and yet they don't believe in themselves that they have the power to do this. So that's part of the sad part, I think.
Yeah, we've got some comments here in the chat box. First of all, Elva says she turned in live to the meeting last Monday, and she said you were absolutely wonderful, and you did a great job. Both you and Sherry did a great job speaking. But she also notes that, it's just kind of that blah, 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 patting each other on the back, little action, lots of talking. Terry is saying the government and the pharmaceutical companies aren't in the business of cures. They're in the business of ongoing treatment, which is really, appears that way. And it's critical for people and associations to be innovators, groundbreakers. We have to change the system. Our system is extremely broken in my eyes, and and that's exactly how I started and why I started Alzheimer Speaks. People said you can't do it that way. You have to build one platform at a time. You have to make it successful. I said I don't have time for that. It's not about money. It's not about profit. Things have got to change, and granted, businesses have to make money, but I'm a firm believer that if we do the right thing and if we really have the people at the core, things will all work out. You look at the memory cafes, and over in the UK, I mean, they've got funding. Their government backs them. The Baptist Church allows them to be in the basements. They have a lot of staff and activities. In the U.S., most of us aren't able to do that. The McFarlands have gotten a nice large grant in Wisconsin of doing fabulous things and very programmatic, and I applaud them. But most of us here in the U.S. are doing it on a shoestring budget. We're getting people with passion pulled together, and we're changing lives. We're making a difference, and we're empowering people to live better. It's not, and the groups are really about what the people need, not what we as facilitators decide they should need. Most of them are very flexible in terms of making sure they're meeting the needs of the people, which sounds kind of asinine that I would even point that out, but so many groups aren't built like that. They're built within this academic model box, and then you either fit it or you don't, until another box is built to fit your needs, instead of really having the ability to ebb and flow within the needs of the community. And I know that you are also involved with the memory cafes out in Pennsylvania where you live. What is your philosophy out there with those?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm not that involved anymore. I'm pretty much turning that over to the association, the Alzheimer's Association, to handle that. But, my theory on the memory cafes is that they should be able to do whatever they want, and the people who are a part of the memory cafe will decide what they will do, whether it's going to be a support group, whether it's just going to be a place for to socialize, or a combination of all these things, and it can change as the group changes. So, I'm not one to say this is how it has to be. I believe it's up to the people who are a part of it to really make it what it's going to be.
I agree. I would love to be able to play a part of your speech, but it's too large to put into our system here. So I'm hoping when and I'm switching gears a little bit here, but we just got some questions about, could we play some of Michael's speech. There will be a link with NAPA. Probably won't be a couple of weeks, you think, before it's up, and then I will push that out through the blog so people can hear it in its entirety, because you and Sherry did an absolutely marvelous job with that, and I think it's very important for you guys to be heard, because you made some critical points, and they were heartfelt. I mean, I when I heard Sherry talk, my heart was just breaking. I know that was very difficult for both of you to say what you said, and it's important to be heard. We've got some other comments here with the conversation, just talking about we need to separate out from the system of the big pharma and the governmental agencies, and then we'll find things that work, understanding the big picture of complexity of the condition, and the trial and error approach, where there really isn't a failure, but it's better to try than to do nothing. And I think that's one of the big mistakes that government and some of our larger associations is making, is they're so afraid of failure, and that's how you learn how things work. And if you go in with it with flexibility, knowing it's not going to be perfect and it needs tweaking to begin with, everything needs to be tweaked, and it should continuously be tweaked so that you're meeting the people's needs. To me, in my eyes, and this is my eyes only, you can't fail, because you're at least trying to do something there. So it's very, very important stuff. Michael, I'm going to put you on hold here, if you don't mind. I've got another caller on the line I'd like to pull in, though. Can you stay with us?
Sure.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and pull in. We've got a caller from a 678 number. 678, you're live and on the air. If you'd like to state your name.
It's Pam Van On.
Who is this?
This is Pam. How are you?
Oh, hi, Pam. How are you doing? Well,
I'm good, thanks.
Welcome to the show. Why don't you tell people who you are and what you'd like to talk about today?
Well, I won't take very much of your time, but my name is Pam Van On. I'm the executive director of a nonprofit located in Atlanta, Georgia. The name of our nonprofit is Caring Together in Hope. And over the weekend, we just celebrated the family caregiver at a music festival in Marietta, Georgia, called the Alzheimer's Music Fest. And thank you so much, Lori, for attending and for being a part of that. Just good stuff happened that day. For me personally, I think it was especially nice to step outside that virtual box and make personal connections. It's always a good thing to have new introductions and to make new friendships. And it was a good day. And I think that since we're on the topic of Alzheimer's dementia, I think the way that I can sum up in just a quote, I don't even recall whose quote this is, certainly it's not mine, but gratitude, the memory of the heart. And so it is with tremendous gratitude for those who attended the festival, those who sponsored the festival, of which you were a sponsor, and your presence along with everybody else who was there was certainly very gratifying for me and for Vince Zangaro, who is the founder of the Alzheimer's Music Fest.
Well, it was a fun time. It ran from, noon to 10 o'clock, 30 different bands. Great auction. They had a silent auction. Then they had a live painter, what was her name? Heather Wilkerson, I think, who painted to music, who was just an incredible artist, and one of our friends, Ron Gregory, with the Alzheimer's Music Connect, was down there, and he bought actually I think 2 of her paintings, and it was fun when I was down there to be able to meet with he and Robin, who was Teepa Snow's one of her representatives and stuff. So yeah, it was a very, very fun time to be down there. I had never been down. I'd never been to Georgia before, period. And then to be in, to have the Alzheimer's Music Fest in Marietta, where a girlfriend of mine lives who I haven't seen in 5 years, so I was able to visit with her too. So it was like so perfect for me, all of the things that happened. It was almost like the perfect storm for me to be able to get some business and have some fun at the same time. And even your weather cooperated. It wasn't too bad. Everyone said, "Oh, it's going to be so hot and humid," and really it was nice. The bands were playing both inside and outside at the music fest. And so it was really the 120 Tavern is really a nice large facility to host that in. So it worked out really, really well, and you seem to have had a nice turnout and things. Are you in the works already to plan for next year? Or?
I just said this week I was just going to take that music. I was going to take a break from that a little bit. I'm not in the works. Of course, Vince Angaro is already in the works with this, and I think that I just have to take some time to reflect and look back. Of course, there's always a way that we would like to improve that, but we did raise almost $15,000 that day, and certainly those funds will be used in the Caring Together and Hope Respite Care program. So we will be able to help or assist a lot of families with a multitude of things, of which one is respite care, which is not what we're entirely about as a nonprofit, but it is our mission to support those caregivers who financially cannot afford to take a break. And I think it's interesting, we know all the statistics, but I think it bears mentioning again that we do need to remember that there are 15.5 million caregivers in this country providing almost 18 billion hours of unpaid care to this entity. And for me, I look at this festival as a celebration of that particular family caregiver. Yes, we always want to raise awareness, and yes, we want to educate the public, but mostly this particular festival, our mission was to just celebrate this caregiver. And in that respect, definitely I feel that we accomplished that mission. And then, of course, we raised some money as well.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. That was, like I said, it was a very fun day. I don't know how Vince did. I know he said he was there starting at 6 in the morning. I don't know what time you got there. I got there about 11, but long day, but definitely worth it. And Vince's dad has dementia, and he had just gotten out of the hospital, I think, what was it, the night before? And
right.
So he really had his hands full pulling everything together. But and the musicians were incredible. I mean, it was I can't remember the one woman's name, but she sounded like Janis Joplin, and I mean, it was a nice variety. Yeah, nice variety.
I think the other thing, it was a diverse mix of music. I think the other thing too is just in speaking with some of these members of the bands who donate their time, and they're part of the starving artist syndrome. These are local bands, fairly well known in Atlanta, perhaps not known outside Atlanta. However, most every member of that band has been impacted or touched by Alzheimer's disease. And so for them to donate that hour of their day not to be paid to the public and to help us celebrate this family caregiver was heartfelt for them as well. And that just makes it even better. And it's a very good event. It's community support, and it's kind of going back to what we used to do so many years ago before the internet, where we'd have just communities getting together and collaborating and trying to figure out how it is that we can help somebody in our community out. And many people throughout the country, all areas of the country and the world, continue to do this. We were just fortunate in that we were able to have this at a place where we got some pretty good press exposure, and now with the internet, it's very easy to expose what your goal is when you have a fundraiser like this. But for me, it's just taking it back to how we used to do it, where we're just getting together with down the street and people who are just like us and have the same passion or have a curiosity about who it is that we were supporting on a particular day. So it was a good day. It really was.
It was a very good day. It was a very good day. You guys did a great job, and I think music is just so important because it connects with everybody, on so many different levels. And I loved when Vince was singing because he was talking. He told us where his songs came from that he wrote, and that was very touching too. So kudos to everybody who was involved in that day. I was. For me, it was just lovely to meet so many great people down in Georgia, and I'm going to have to maneuver myself back there again, I think, very soon.
That would be great. That would be great. So I do need to get to work, but I would just want to thank you, and again, for attending and for helping us to promote this event. Thanks.
Well, great. Thank you. Have a wonderful week, Pam. Bye now.
Okay.
So, Michael, I'm going to go ahead and pull you back into the conversation. This music fest was really, I can't imagine the amount of work it was to pull together, but it was really an incredible day. And to think of 30 bands, all donating their time, showed up with no problem whatsoever, and the variety of music and the people that came in, it was pretty cool to watch. And to see that happen. What are your thoughts on something like that?
Well, that sounds really interesting. I'm glad to hear something like that was put together. I think the project that I'm already working on, Lori, and I've been working on it for some time now. I call it the World Dementia Concert, and I'm actually trying to pull together people from all over the world to come together to create multiple concerts and then one huge concert to work together, similar to what they did for We Are the World, that was put together by Harry Belafonte and Michael Jackson. And in fact, just this past weekend, I've pulled some people together who are now in the orchestra business because, I think you've seen my list that I created of who are the bands that I was trying to pull together. But somebody reached out to me and said, well, why aren't you getting the orchestras involved? And I never even thought about it. So I got a couple of people who are helping me pull that together. But I got to tell you, it's a tough road to try to pull something like this together, especially for somebody like me who's not in the famous arena, because most of these people, they're hard to get to. But I got a lot of people starting to come to help me, and it feels like I'm on a steep road with a lot of grease on it. But hopefully we'll get some traction soon.
Yeah, wouldn't that be sweet? Because what a great concept. I'd love to hear what our audience has to say on that. If you want to use the chat box, do you think having a world concert like Michael was talking about would work? I think it would be absolutely fantastic. You've looked at all the things that Bon Jovi has done and all the others in terms of pulling these, things together for the tsunami and, all the different disasters. Well, hello, dementia is a disaster. It's just in a different form. You can call it an epidemic. You can call it all different types of things. Terry is saying, get in touch with me. A friend of mine does band management and does causes and may be able to work with that. So, okay, I will hook you guys up. That would be wonderful. Thank you, Terry. That would be absolutely great to, if we could get this pulled together further in any type of fashion. That would be magnificent. And it wouldn't be something, needless to say, that could happen quickly. I'm sure that this is something that's going to take a lot of time and energy. But, to me, I think it's just long overdue, and I don't quite know why no one has thought of it. I just don't understand. I don't understand how people aren't seeing the need so clearly. And maybe it's just because I've lived in it now over half of my life, and even though my mom has passed, this has become my world, to make a difference. And stay connected, with this. So, yeah, very interesting. If anybody has any ideas, please get a hold of Michael Ellenbogen. Michael, I'm just shooting you an email actually while we're on the air here with Terry's name. You can reach her through Facebook. Will probably be the easiest connection there. So wonderful. Anything else on your agenda that you wanted to talk about? Anything more you wanted to maybe share about Napa or any of the other? You're involved in so many ventures. I don't know how you even keep up, to be honest with you.
Lori, tell you the truth, I don't know myself, and people keep saying, "You sure you have Alzheimer's?" And I'll tell you, if they only knew how many things I keep dropping every day. But hey, it's the things that I remember to do that hopefully will one day make a difference and an impact to help so many, because that's my goal. And I'm not sure, like with this music thing, I mean, if people who are your listeners want to get in touch with me, they can get to me through my website, Michael Ellenbogen Movement, and through that they can reach out to me through the contact, and I'll be more than happy to talk to anybody who has connections to somebody in the music world, because I believe working together is the only way we're going to be able to do this, instead of working it within our silos. But there is one thing, if I could mention, that I'm really excited about. Believe it or not, as you know, I've been working on my book now for years and years trying to get this thing, and I never thought I'd get it done, but I think within the next couple of days, my not a hardback, but the softback will actually be available. We've had so much problems trying to get it to this point, so I think in another couple of days I will actually have a softback available, because a lot of people don't like being able to look at it online or to be able to get the Kindle version, so this will make it a lot easier for a lot of people.
Oh, good. Well, that's fantastic. And for those of you that haven't read Michael's book, there is a fabulous review. In fact, I'll go to my blog and find this review that was done by a colleague of ours, Elon Caspi, who specializes in behaviors. He's a gerontologist, very renowned in his field, and he just did an incredible review. I've never seen a book review in such detail, and he really points out why and which chapters people should read for which things. I mean, it was incredible. It was he really it was fantastic, and it made you just kind of go, wow, this is important stuff here. And it needs to be acknowledged, and it needs to be spread. People need to understand and really take your work seriously in terms of what you've done. So, and Michael, what's the name of the book again? Now I don't want to misspeak on that.
I think it's From the Corner Office to Alzheimer's.
Okay. That's what I was thinking it was, but I wasn't quite sure, so I thought I'm just gonna ask on that one, and I'm trying to find the link to that blog. But I have several different things on here with you, and with Elon, so I'm getting a lot pumped up here on this. I'm just going to check the chat box again and see if there are any other thoughts that people want to talk about. And I'm going to push out there, has anybody read Michael's book and any thoughts on it? It's a fantastic book. Lots of great information. And you're also trying to raise some funds and some, so that you can continue your awareness. Do you want to talk about that as well, Michael?
Sure. I appreciate that. Basically, I've been doing this now for 5 years, and everything I've done, people just love what I'm doing, but what they don't realize is all this has been on my own expenses. Nobody's been really supporting me for these things. I go to all these conferences and speak, and been going to Napa, and I mean, every time I go to Napa, believe it or not, it costs me like $700-800. So all these expenses, are actually taking a toll on me, and I no longer can really do it. And what I've done is I've created one of these fundraising sites, and I'm hoping that people will be able to help me to continue and to raise some funds so I can continue to be able to do this, because what I'm doing is not really for me, but it's really for all the people who have dementia and those who are going to be impacted in the future for it. So my goal is to hopefully make an impact and a difference, and I'm hoping this is going to work. I will tell you I'm a little disappointed so far in what I've gotten, but I'm keeping my head up, because there was one guy out there who, believe it or not, he did it as a joke. He was only asking for $10 for some kind of potato salad, and he ended up with $65,000, Lori. So I'm thinking if somebody who was doing for something as a joke was able to get that kind of money, hopefully, people will see the goodness of what I'm trying to do and hopefully be able to help me out. And they can reach out to me through my website. There's a link on there that will take them to the crowdfunding site. And I think if I remember correctly, you had it on your site somewhere too.
Did just put in the chat box a link to the review and that Elon did, and if you want to just look at the site, it says Life with Dementia, why it's so important for us to listen to those diagnosed, and it talks about the book, and then it has Elon's review on there, and then there's also a link to your website, to the video, kind of the webinar that the two of us did, so people could hear why it's so important to be able to give voice to the voiceless, because that's kind of how you see yourself in terms of helping those that can't speak, those that have passed, and those that'll be coming down the line. And so all of that information is there at that link. All you have to do is click on the different things. But very, very powerful book. You've got a very powerful voice. You're, articulate, and I know that sometimes that gets frustrating because, like you said, sometimes people think that you can't have Alzheimer's, you can't have dementia. You sound too good, and they don't understand it runs a lot deeper than just a voice. And people don't know what it takes for you to write your speech, and I didn't either until we were working on one of the platforms, and you showed me even how you had to space things in order for it to flow for you, which to the rest of us it would be very confusing. But that's how you're able to do what you do. You've figured out workarounds. You haven't given up. And, I really applaud you for that. And all the others out there with dementia who are sharing what it really is like, until people really start understanding what it's really like, we're not going to be able to make a big difference. We can't just scare people, but we have to give them hope, too. None of our lives are perfect, unless you've, entered the Stepford Wives community or something. But, so we shouldn't be ashamed that our lives aren't perfect. We just have to learn to rework things. And I think that's what you've done very well. I think that's what Harry and Rick have done, and so many others. Richard Taylor, you guys are just out there in the thick of things. Sandy, just comes to mind, and there's so many more people living with dementia that aren't giving up on life. And the dementia mentors, created, for people with dementia to be able to mentor and help those stepping into this space live well. I mean, what a brilliant concept. And you kind of, to me, I kind of smack myself on the head and go, what took this so long? But again, it came from a grassroots endeavor, people actually living with the disease. It wasn't launched by an association or an organization that, we all think is out to help. And they are, don't get me wrong. But these new creative ways I really wish the larger associations and those with the funding, I wish they would step up and do some collaborating with the creative side of the world, because it seems to be that creative side that's really reaching out and touching and gaining momentum. And I don't know if you agree with that comment or not, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Michael.
No, I agree with everything you said, and I tell you, there's a lot of things that I do, Lori, that you mentioned that, I can't take credit for them all. I mean, believe it or not, I got to give thanks to the person who helps edits all the work that I do. Her name is Emma Steele. She's actually out of the UK. I mean, if you would see, where I started writing years ago and how my writing is today, it's atrocious anymore, and it's terrible. But that's what people would need to understand, that we're still capable of doing things. We just need to get some help from other people so we can still try to function in the daily living. We all have our own little difficulties, and I think there's people out there that can help us through those difficulties.
Yep. And so many people are just, they want to be able to help. They want to be able to make a difference in the world. And so, part of it is just the simplicity of connecting, to one another. And that should be, we should make that an easier process as well. We've got to, and social media has helped so much. Because I don't know, did you know the person in the UK prior, or did you meet them?
Actually, somebody helped get it out there on social media, because I'm not too good. It's funny. I'm on Facebook and I'm all these things. I don't even understand them anymore. I really don't, Lori. And so many people think I do, but to me it's so confusing. And here I was an IT guy, and but I still try to stay engaged as best as I can with these things, even though I know I'm doing a lousy job at it today. But what can you do? You do the best that you can, and that's what anybody should do. They shouldn't let the disability stand in their way. And I have to tell you, people have been so kind and nice. When I look at some of these emails that I share with people and how terrible my writing is anymore, it's amazing. They're all so nice. They don't treat you like you have a disability,
Mhm. And people's writing has changed so much anyways. It's almost like a new language out there with all the abbreviations, and and I know myself, I've fallen into it where I'm writing and I don't put in the periods because I'm so used to doing the social media stuff sometimes, and I have to go back and go, okay, this is really a formal letter. I can't put a U for you. I have to spell it out, but it's just it's kind of funny how much things have changed, and but people should be gracious, no matter what. Our communication is so much deeper than just our words, and sometimes people focus so deeply on the words or the grammar, and they're missing the whole point of the communication, because again, they're in a box. And in my line of thinking, and some of you may disagree with me, and feel free to pipe up. If you do, that's what the show's about, is having a respectful conversation. But I think it's time to get rid of the boxes, because the boxes make us judge right from wrong. And there is so little in the world that is truly right or wrong. We live really in a world of gray, because everybody's coming at things from different angles and different perspectives, and it saddens me that we teach a right or wrong society. And again, not that we don't need some lines drawn in the sand, but we're missing out on one of the most critical aspects, I think, which is respect and dignity, in terms of how we treat people. And you can have a disagreement without having an argument. You can have a conversation, but we get so stubborn sometimes that it turns into literally a war, because we just don't know how to be respectful of other people's beliefs or needs, or situations. And most of the time it seems like it's driven by fear of something. And so again, I'm just about let's remove the fear and let's replace it with hope, and move forward. And not that there's not going to be some scary times, because Lord knows there's going to be. But let's focus on hope that we can make things better. We all have the power to make a difference, and especially if we join together, so much that we can do. So, anything else that you want to share with our audience today, Michael?
Not at this time, Lori. In fact, I got to get going for another meeting.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking so much time with us today. I always appreciate that. And as soon as Napa gets that link up, please let me know, and then we'll go ahead and be able to push out that audio. I'll see if I can do some playing, but I just think it's going to be too large unless I can find a way to store it someplace that I don't know where I can store it yet to link to. Because it is a very, very powerful video or audio that you and Sherry did in your speeches to Napa. So, again, I thank you very much for that. So you have a great week, and we will catch up with you later, okay?
You too, and thank you for having me. Have a wonderful day now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Before I get in and introduce our guest today, who I'm so excited to have with us, I do want to do a couple of shout-outs and some highlights here. I just got an email this morning, and I'm so excited for my friends at the University of Minnesota School of Nursing and the Lutheran Home Association of Belle Plains, who I've done a lot of work for as well, just received a $1.2 million grant in partnership, and it came from the Department of Health and Human Services Agencies for Health Research and Quality, and they are going to be looking at the impact of health monitoring technology and how it relates to a person with Alzheimer's and dementia, as well as their family caregivers. And this is a 5-year research grant. They're working with a colleague of mine, Dr. Joe Gogler at the University of Minnesota School of Nursing, who I'm on his board with, and then the Lutheran Home Association. So kudos, guys. That's very, very exciting news. I also wanted to mention that if you didn't listen to last week's show, I had Dr. Stephen Hogue on, and he's written a book about his caring for his mother, and he has some son's rules. And that was a nice conversation. We also had open mic for an hour of that program, too, which was interesting. Next week, we are hoping to have on the director of a film being made in India on dementia, and it's called Life Flows On. We're also going to be having an author, Anne Campanella, on, and her book is called Motherhood, Lost and Found, where she's going to talk about stories of her mother's descent into Alzheimer's, and at the same time she was longing to become a mother herself and what that was like. Our last Dementia Chats was July 22nd. That is recorded, and you can go ahead and watch that anytime. We discussed how someone with dementia engages in activities, the risk of a person being independent, and sometimes people pull back because they're worried about the risk, and yet the value of feeling purposeful. So we had a really, really good conversation on that. We also talked about supplements and herbs and drug regulations. Always fun. August 12th will be our next Dementia Chats. Again, open discussion. Anyone is available. Our experts are those with dementia. And, our audience are people that have dementia, family caregivers, as well as business professionals, and those just wanting to learn more. So, again, anyone is welcome. You can find out more on how to link by just going to alzheimersspeaks.com. Then go to our About page, and there you'll see a tab for Dementia Chats. On our blog, there was a great article that was done by the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation. It was on why we need to master stress. I've gotten some great comments in various modes. You don't see them all on the blog because things get pushed out in so many different elements. Our intern, Michelle, wrote a fun piece on the Minnesota Twins, Peanuts and Memories. She is a student. She's actually applying for grad school now, and she talks a lot about her grandpa and the lessons that have learned. And she's just an extraordinary young person with a passion to make a difference. She's actually opened up a memory cafe down in Northfield, Minnesota, and I'm just honored to have her be an intern with Alzheimer's Speaks. There was also a student from Washington University who needs your help. He is doing a project for dementia, again, another grad student. So on July 27th, there's an article on the blog that just says student needs your help for a dementia project. See how you can help through a survey there. Information if you wanted to know about the Music Fest, Alzheimer's Music Fest in Georgia that was just this last week. Norms wrote a beautiful piece of prose called 30 Seconds Away Day. Pretty powerful piece as usual with Norms. There's a new video that was listed, Insights to Caring Well for Those with Dementia. That actually featured myself. It was done by Silver Sphere, who is a large technology company helping assisted livings and nursing homes. They're also in the process of launching some home care technology as well. That's Silver Sphere. I posted a video from the Alzheimer's Society, and it's about how small changes can help make a community dementia-friendly. There is also one on life with dementia, why it's so important for us to listen. And then what else do we have? Oh, there was a call for nominations for Dementia Care Professional of the Year. If you know of somebody that you would like to nominate for that, that was posted July 24th. Again, just go to our blog or Google call for nominations, and you can get more information on that. And let's see, 60andMe, we also have a video from them on Alzheimer's prevention and treatment. What can we really do? So lots and lots of good things available on the blog. And again, we would love for you to push any of that information out. That would be wonderful. I am going to give one last shout-out mid-program-wise, and we'll pull in our guest today, Gary Glazner, who I'm so excited to have back with us. Again, for those of you who are not familiar with the Purple Angel Project, you may want to check that out. Again, you can get to that on the About page. The Purple Angel is the new global symbol for dementia. If you're looking for an Alzheimer's Association anywhere in the world, please check out Alzheimer's Disease International. There you can hook up with the association closest to you, but more than that, you're going to get global insights and the reports that they have done. You'll learn about the G8 summits and so forth. The Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation, they have their 4 pillars of prevention plan. They just do a phenomenal job. And then there is the Lewy Body Association, Frontal Temporal Lobe Association, and National Aphasia, which really target specific symptoms of dementia. Don't forget about Music First with Choral Health. They have your prescription for music. as well as Puzzle With Me and Jiminy Wicket, which is a fantastic croquet game that's intergenerational and can just be a lot of fun to play. So let me go ahead and introduce our guest here today. Gary Glazner is the founder and executive director of the Alzheimer's Poetry Project, known as APP. And the APP was actually the recipient of the 2013 Rosalind Gilbert Innovations in Alzheimer's Disease Caregiving Legacy Award. Boy, that's a mouthful, isn't it? The project was also awarded the 2012 MetLife Foundation Creativity and Aging in American Leadership Award in the category of community engagement. PBS News, our NBC and the Today Show and NPR's All Things Considered have also featured segments of Gary's work. He is just an incredible man. I was lucky enough to meet him. I want to say it was last winter in January. I want to say it was at the Institute of Art in Minneapolis. He just recently published a new book called Dementia Arts, Celebrating Creativity in Elder Care, which was published by Health Professional Press. So welcome, Gary. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited for you with your book. How fun is this?
Yeah, it's exciting to have a new book out, and it was a lot of work, but a good process to go through, and I'm very excited that it's finished, and now I can talk about it instead of working on it.
Yeah, that makes quite a bit of difference. I saw you for the first time. I want to say was it just this last winter? It seems like it was longer ago than that, but maybe it was. I know it was winter because there was snow. I thought there was snow on the ground, anyways.
Yeah, it was last December.
Okay, that's what it was. I was thinking it was January. Okay, so December. Yeah, and it was just so much fun to see you work. You are quite the silly little man, engaging and just having so much fun with your audience, and you just, as an audience member, to watch people just light up was such a treat. And to see you take somebody who's, pretty nonverbal and half asleep and, get them laughing and their eyes lighting up and talking was really something special to be able to see. So kudos to you for all of your work. Why don't you tell us a little bit?
It helped a lot to have Jane Tygeson, who leads the Discover Your Story project at the museum, had brought her grandmother's hat made out of pheasant feathers.
Yep.
And so that helped a lot to connect with the audience, because we had these all of us, Zoe, Bird, and Rachel, that are the teaching artists in Minneapolis for the Alzheimer's Poetry Project. We all were wearing these great hats that Jane's grandmother had made, and they're just so gorgeous. These old-fashioned, funny hats made of pheasant feathers. And I think the people that came into the museum that day were surprised to see a group of pheasant feather-wearing hat greeters at the door.
Yeah, it wasn't something that you see every day. That's for sure. So it was very fun to be part of it. Gary, can you tell people before we kind of get down our line of questions, have you been personally touched with family or friends that have had dementia? It's always interesting for people just to kind of know your background a little bit.
Well, my experience in being a caregiver is with both my mother and father. And with my mother, she had cancer and had spread to her brain, so she had tumors that were causing dementia-like behavior. And so that was '97, and was really part of what inspired me to do this work and to really at this point now make it my life's work. It's been about 10 years since creating the Alzheimer's Poetry Project, but that first experience in '97, when my mom was in the last stages of cancer, was also when I did the first workshop with an adult daycare center, and that was just to use poetry with them. I had no, real knowledge of Alzheimer's or dementia or living with memory loss, but I got a small grant to do a workshop at an adult daycare center in Northern California. And at that same time, my mom had cancer, and my dad had called and said, "Your mom's really agitated. She's really upset. She's asking for cherry ice cream." My mother and father were childhood sweethearts, so they became boyfriend and girlfriend at age 5 and 6. And so they, my dad called and said, "Your mom's really upset," and he never asked for help. He was. We didn't even use these words, but he was her caregiver, and my sister-in-law Alma too. She really helped out a lot. So he called and said, "Your mom's real upset and she wants cherry ice cream." So I went and got the ice cream, and I remember this moment. It was just such a striking feeling. I just was reaching back for the ice cream to get out of the car, and I had all the poetry books with me, and I just thought, I'm going to bring in the poetry books and try them with my mom. She had been experiencing memory loss and disorientation around dates and who she was talking to and this type of dementia behavior. And so I brought them in, and we ate the ice cream, and she and had teased my dad as a boy with, "Can you bake a cherry pie, Billy Boy?" His name was Billy, and her name was Frankie. And so we started, that was one of the little rhymes that was in the book, and so I started to say, "Can you bake a cherry pie?" And she started to sing it, and she got real excited and was doing these kind of little motions with her fingers, these little hand motions, and my dad started laughing, and, it was a real moment of joy and happiness in the midst of that hospice time with my mom, and it just reinforced to me the work I was doing at the adult day center could be of use to, in this case, my own mother, and in a hospice setting. So that's really my experience with it. And then my dad, thankfully, didn't have any memory loss or dementia when he passed away. That was a couple years ago. But I did use poetry with him as well. I did recite poetry with him towards the end of his life.
Wow. So, yeah, okay, so very, very interesting with this all in terms of how it all works. I didn't remember your mom having brain cancer. My dad had brain cancer as well, so understand that journey. Well, I appreciate you sharing that insight with us, because it's always interesting kind of for people to know background. So, why did you choose focusing on creativity with people living with, memory loss and their care partners? What got you there? I mean,
so it really started with that personal experience. Now, almost 17 years ago, and then 10 years ago, fully starting the Alzheimer's Poetry Project. But I think the reason why creativity, on a personal level, I studied poetry in college, and I want poetry to be central to my life. But on a more universal level, expanding from what I saw with my own mother and my dad of how it could enhance my experience with them as a caregiver and, in hospice, I think it really... there's so many studies now and so many different art forms that people are using with creativity at the center with people with memory loss, and you just see across the board these things are really successful. And you see it, like you said, you started talking about how I'm kind of a goofy guy, and it was great to see, people sort of warm up and start to smile and laugh. So anecdotally, we see this. We see creativity being very successful. But then now these studies are coming in, including like the one that you just mentioned about the Lutheran group in Minnesota, who will now, start to study dementia as well. But there's just a study that came out this morning in the New York Times. Now, this one is about caregivers for children that have disabilities, developmental disabilities. But you could say the same thing that they found in this study for people that are taking care of their parents or even their partner, their husband or wife. What they found was in this study, it's called when the caregivers need healing. It's in today's New York Times. Came out of a study of Vanderbilt in Nashville, Tennessee. They focused on ways that the caregivers could reduce stress. And the ways that they practiced were, things like meditation, breathing exercises, simple movement things, and curbing negative thoughts, practicing gratitude. These are things they're talking about in there, and reclaiming an aspect of the adult life. So what they found was that this greatly reduced the level of stress of the caregivers. Well, those all can fall under the category of creativity. And it shows that, we don't just mean when we're talking about creativity, we don't just mean the art forms of poetry, dance, storytelling, music, all of these things that are so successful, and there's such wonderful examples of this with your group from Minnesota, of Kairos Alive, the dance group, Time Slips, which comes out of your neighboring state, Wisconsin, with Ann Bastings, Songwriting Works, which is out of the West Coast. All of these things, and of course the most famous, the Meet Me at MoMA program, where people do art visits to museums, which the Minneapolis Institute of Art is part of that SPARK group that's Wisconsin and Minnesota museums. But here it is, this wonderful study that just came out this morning, so exciting to talk about it, showing that these ways of thinking about life can help to reduce stress. And, these are really simple techniques. So it's around mindfulness, really, is what they're talking about. And when you're doing a poem with someone, that's a form of that. So our major technique that we use is call and response. Now, call and response is really simple, and you just say a line of poetry, and the group or the individual, if you're working one-on-one with somebody at the home, just repeats the line. Now, you can imagine a person living with memory loss that so much is being taken away, and maybe they don't remember if they just had a glass of juice. In worst-case scenarios, perhaps they don't even recognize you as their daughter any longer. But you're sitting with them, and you say, my love is like a red, red rose, and they say it back, and suddenly you're in this other frame of communication around creativity that's not about the sort of autobiographical memories that we often think about as memory, like, Dad, do you remember when we took that trip to Yellowstone, right? That's challenging for a person with memory loss. But when you're doing this type of call and response, which they found does reduce stress. There was a study in Germany and Austria in 2004 that showed using call and response lowers the heart rate and lowers the pulse, which are indications that stress is being reduced. And so this type of, and you're breathing, you're taking in air, it's getting oxygen to your brain, and it's fun and it's easy to do. And so that's just one idea of, like, why do we use creativity? At the core of it, if you're framing these correctly for the person with memory loss, they can be successful at it, and that's huge. And then if you frame it how the caregiver interacts with them, using it as a type of communication, that's another big way to think about this.
You know,
so,
one of the Oh, I'm sorry.
Go
Go ahead. I was going to say one of the things that you talk about is creativity. The other way, I guess, I like to explain it, and for me, how I frame it is, this disease allows us to play again, and so through creativity, we're learning. I mean, you're less judgmental. All that stuff goes out the window. So when all that stuff goes out the window, you're back having fun. You're with your core essence. And people are truly connecting on a real kind of soulful level. And, the benefits are so huge. But, for me, how I framed it with my own mom was she taught me how to play again, to learn to communicate differently with her so I didn't take everything so seriously. Things didn't have to be it wasn't about perfection. It was really about having fun and having a connection, and that took on a lot of different creative forms. So I form it a little bit different in terms of I put the play first, and the creativity generates that. And in your words, you're using the creativity first, but it really is generating that fun, and that it's like a playtime. It's just the whole room gets relaxed, and it's like, well, what's better than that, And then you've got these huge smiles going on. It's those two things, the creativity and actually three: the creativity, the play, and losing that stress and the judgment. It's just the stress and the judgment is released and just allows us to. It's like the whole room is lighter. I don't know if that makes sense, but that was my feeling of experiencing what you do.
And I think you're right on the money with that it's about play. That's the essence of it. One example would be yesterday at New York Memory Center, which is an adult daycare center here in Brooklyn that I do a lot of work at. And we've been experimenting with creating movement to the lines of poetry. So this is going to be a little bit challenging on the radio, but I want to describe what happened yesterday. So the first thing we're doing, which is really a playful way to get into the poetry, is I take the anthology that we use and I start to thumb through it. So I'm flipping the pages rapidly and fanning the pages kind of. And when they say when, then I stick my finger down into the book, and whatever poem it hits on is the poem we do. So it's kind of like poetry roulette. And so that's fun. They like that. They like seeing the thing being fanned and all of a sudden. And then it's a little different than me just saying we're going to do this poem, right? So the poem I hit on yesterday was Annabelle Lee by Edgar Allan Poe. So I recite a line of the poetry. I say the words, and then I stop and I ask them, how would you show that with your hands or your movement or your arms or your body? What would that look like? So I say, it was many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea. And the many and many part, I asked them, how would you show that with your hands? And this woman just immediately, it was so beautiful, she just immediately took her right hand and just patted her heart in rhythm. So you can imagine the hand striking the heart to the rhythm of, it was many and many a year ago. And so that was the first move. And that was just beautiful that the words many were playfully recreated in the repetition of the heart beating. And this is all just non-verbally, that they're just showing you to do that. I'm asking for suggestions. So that's what we came up with there. And then in a kingdom by the sea, they wanted that to be our hands moving like the waves of the ocean. So you had this heartbeat at first, then going into the gentle waves sort of swelling and cresting. And that was many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea. And then the next line, there lived a maiden you may know. So they made a shape of a house, like a above their head of being sheltered by a house. That was the place where she lived.
Mm-hmm.
So many and many a year ago, in a kingdom by the sea, there lived a maiden. So they made a house that she lived in. And then I said, this was the thing was so playful and funny, and people just fell out of their chairs. I said, how do you show the maiden? And they did the universal sign for taking your hands and making womanly curves. So
Very
you can imagine the whole thing is you're tapping your heart. It was many and many a year ago, and then your hands are flowing like the waves of an ocean. In a kingdom by the sea, there lived a maiden you may know, and they did a little shelter over their head, and then they did with the hands moving to show the womanly curves, and they just thought that. I mean, you could not stop. They couldn't stop laughing when that came out, and then we would repeat that, and then what we did was we alternated reciting lines of that poetry with singing "Swing Low, Sweet Chariot." So we'd go into, many and many a year ago by a kingdom by the sea, and then we'd go into swing low, sweet, and just real soft. I would start it so they'd hear the melody and hear the song, but then I would drop my voice down, and we just sang it really softly. It was so beautiful. And we just alternate back and forth between reciting the poem with really high energy and quite humorous movement, and lovely as well, and then with this just beautiful gospel song. And they just, we just had a ball.
Very fun. Very, very fun.
And at the core of all of that is play, right? Being playful about how do we create a movement together, how do we sing, just really a beautiful, soft version of it. And then we would kind of get more gospel-y as we went along. But that all, as you were saying, the core of all of that is playing. Now, this is a room of about 30 people, and not all people are participating, but a big percentage are, I would say at least 2/3. And they are laughing and smiling and totally engaged, and everybody's being successful. And it's all about play.
Yep. And how cool is that? Because, as we grow older, we're taught that life is very serious, and there's things to do, and especially in this day and age, people are so busy. Their calendars are packed, and we're slaves to our schedules. And this just says cell phones off. Everything's free flowing, and there's just it. When people disconnect from that intensity of structure, it's just amazing to watch. It's just amazing to watch. And for me, it took me some time to disengage and to be able to unplug, to learn how to play again, because it was embedded in me as being so important, to stay on top. I had lost my ability to be spontaneous. I could always be fluid in my work life, and I would tackle whatever would happen. But at home, I got back to that structure, and I found that I wasn't as fluid with my personal connections, and I held more to that taskmaster because, at work I still had to get the job done, so I had to figure out a workaround. So it was kind of strange when I kind of analyzed myself and just really let go and unplugged, and then as a caregiver, how much lighter and better I felt because I wasn't carrying with intensity. It wasn't this burden. It was really so much more joyful for me to be in that position. So that was a huge, huge gift too. Can you tell us, Gary? How can people kind of get creative verbal, with verbal expressions and stuff, and incorporate daily activities? How do they bring that out of, a program that you do? How do they bring that home or to work?
Right, yeah. So I'll give one example of a woman that I work with in Madison, Wisconsin. Her name is Karen Baru, and she has frontal temporal dementia.
Okay.
And I met her a couple of years ago, probably 3 years now. I was doing a workshop in Madison, and at the Wisconsin Dementia Alliance, and Karen found out about it, and she wrote me, and she told me her situation, and she said that she couldn't make it across town to the workshop. And I said, well, why don't I just come over to your house and you and I can work together? Because she really expressed a desire to poetry. She was very interested in that. And so I went over to her house. And so this is one of the lessons from the book, from Dementia Arts, Celebrating Creativity in Elder Care. And this is a real simple technique. So what we did was I wanted to create a poem with her. And this could end in a poem, but it also could just be a discussion too. So the book takes the form of all the art inspirations or art lessons are in the form of recipes. And the reason why I wanted to use the recipe format was I really wanted the book to be seen as somewhat similar to a cookbook that you pick up, you thumb through it, and you pick a recipe or maybe a couple for a meal that day. And I really wanted people to think of this book that way, where they could be nourished by it, so in that same way, but also to tie in with, I think most people, there's this range of ability to be a cook, right? From being able to make toast, to being able to be like a 4-star chef. And so, but most people see that they can be somewhat creative in the kitchen, even though they might not be, a famous chef. So I wanted to tie in with that as well. So this recipe is called If a Tree Falls in a Forest. And so each one has the recipe format. So it has the ingredients. So the ingredients that you have for this recipe are something to look at, 2 curious minds, something to write with, something to write on, and 1 chunk of uninterrupted time. Could be 10 minutes, could be 30 minutes, could even be 5. So, and then there's in the instructions. So the instructions say, with this recipe, we look at creating a poem in a one-on-one setting. You're going to choose something to look at and write about. Some examples would be trees, flowers, animals, the sky, clouds, children playing. And you're going to ask the person to describe what he or she is seeing. And this works well if the room has a location with a view. Or in this case with Karen, it was nice. And I asked her what she wanted to write about, and she said trees. And then I said, well, do you have a tree you want to write about? And she said, yeah, that one out in the front yard. So we went outside, and we just looked at the tree, and we started to think about the tree, and I asked her some questions around it, and I wrote down what her answers were. And so this is the poem that came out of it, and then we'll talk a little bit more about how you could do this with someone in your life. So
okay.
Here's her poem by Karen Baru. Her poem is called Trees. So she says, my favorite trees are many. I love our tree out there. I think it's a maple. It smells soft as washed clothes. How high can you go up in a tree? Feel the bark. It has texture. It feels heavy. It tastes icky. It looks beautiful. The shape is beautiful. A monument and a statue. I can hear it talking. I always hear trees talking. Hello and welcome. Please do come and sit on me. So that's her poem, and the way we got to it and how you can do this with someone in your life is the first thing, I just asked her does she have a favorite tree? And so her first answer, and so I was writing down what she was saying. So her first thing was, my favorite trees are many. And then we talked about, she said that, and then she said, I love the tree out there. She talked about being a maple. And then this is a shift, and this is one of the techniques that you can do that's talked about in the book in ways to create poems or stories or even songs, really. I asked her to explore the tree through her senses. And so I said to her, what does the tree smell like? Now, you got to imagine, Karen and I are out in her front yard, and talk about tree huggers. I mean, when I asked her what it smelled like, she put her nose right up the bark and took a big, deep breath of the tree. And she looked up and she said, it smells soft as washed clothes. And I just thought, man, that is a beautiful, beautiful a line. And then we talked a little bit about the bark, and so that's when you get this, that it feels heavy, but it tastes icky. She didn't actually taste the tree, but she imagined that the taste of the bark would not be great. And then we talked a little bit about this, how it felt, and she said that the shape is beautiful. And I asked her what the sound of the tree was. And this, again, was this wonderful moment of creativity and playfulness. And she said that the sound, that she could hear the tree talking. So that was maybe the wind rustling in the breeze or the branches moving. But she felt that. That was the sound of the tree, that the trees would talk. And I asked her, well, if they're talking, what do they say? And she said, the tree says, hello, welcome, and please do come and sit on me. So that's how we got to the poem. And it really was just a lovely afternoon. And this concept of playfulness and attention to mind and listening to each other, it really can be a way to step out of most of, like the day-to-day caregiving experience, like you talked about how you were able to focus and get your work done. Well, caregivers have to do that. They have to do cleaning and taking care of the person and making sure the schedules are met and, going to appointments and cooking, all these things. But imagine, this book imagines that for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, you step out of that normal routine and you use these recipes to prepare some little creative moment with your loved one. And that's really what this is about. It's not saying, your day, we're acknowledging what the day is like. It's hard. There's so much stuff that needs to be accomplished. But this ability to communicate with the loved one outside of that through creativity and through playfulness is what this book is about and what I'm advocating for.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, it's just the book cover alone, it just shows the engagement. You're out in the park and, the music's playing and you've got your hands raised and everybody's smiling and having fun. It just is very, very engaging. And then the pictures throughout the book. I love the one in Chapter 9, too, where you've got intergenerational programming and you're sitting there laughing with two little kids. Can you talk a little bit about the intergenerational?
Yeah, and also, too, I should give a shout-out to the wonderful German photographer Michael Hagedorn, who has a project, Confetti in Head, in Germany, that he does Dementia Arts festivals, and I think he's just a fantastic photographer. And he came and spent about a week with me in New York and took all these great pictures. So the book is mixed with a lot of family photos. It tells the story of my mom and dad and me being a caregiver, but then most of the other photos are Michael's. And so he's just really great at capturing the moment. And that's one that you mentioned is with a school that's right a half a block away from New York Memory Center. So it's a wonderful opportunity. It's kindergarten through 6th grade, and I work with all the different ages. and we bring the kids in. We teach them to recite the poems, and then we bring them in and work with the people at New York Memory Center, and we create and perform poems together. And we also kind of march over doing poetry, this concept I have of the precision poetry drill team. And we march down the street reciting poems, which gets a lot of strange looks and laughter from people that are going about their day and see us, this group of 20 kids reciting poetry as we go, hand in hand on the edge of the sand. We dance by the light of the moon, and we'll spin around and dance and then keep that going until we get into the center. So the youngest kids I've ever worked with are 2.5, and that's with ACE Preschool. That's above New York Memory Center. But you guys have a wonderful intergenerational program out in Minnesota called Ebenezer Ridges, and they have a preschool there, and they also have some infants too. So I worked with them, and they're a great organization down in Burnsville, just a little outside of Minneapolis.
Yeah, there's so many exciting things going on. It's very, very fun. You also have a chapter on improvisation, and I love the picture with that one. You've got a couple of great pictures in that chapter on that one as well. But I mean, that really is what creativity is at its core. It's all improv. It's going with the moment and shouting it out and not worrying about what someone's going to say, and doing it with a smile, and you do it brilliantly. You do it absolutely brilliantly.
Thank you. I first heard about the concept of using improv from Karen Stobbe, who's out of North Carolina. She does a lot of trainings and has worked for years with the Pioneer Network. But she was the first person I heard lecture, give a workshop on it. And it's this concept. There's a couple concepts that people can think about. One is the improv technique, which is very core to improvisation, which is yes and. So in the caregiving world, oftentimes, especially at facilities, people will say, I want to go home. And it can mean just so many different things. It can mean the physical place that they grew up at. It could mean that they're ready to die, and they want to go to heaven. It could mean, a sort of view of a place as home. Now, a typical response, might be to say to them, you are home, or your home doesn't exist. We sold your home, whatever the reality might be, right? Like, you live here. But instead of doing that, this yes and concept talks about, that you agree. It doesn't become an argument or a question of right or wrong. It's that person living in that moment, and that reality is they're saying they want to go home. That's a need. And so you're saying yes, and then the and is a redirect. So it's yes and then you come up with some idea that complements maybe what they're saying, or, like, yes, and aren't homes lovely, or isn't it wonderful to be home? So you're not negating what the person's saying, you're agreeing with them, and then you're redirecting a little bit to, so that it doesn't become a kind of back and forth, negative loop. And so that's one technique, and the book goes into a lot of different improv techniques and the reasoning behind it and all kinds of examples. But the other one, which I love, which I learned from Jenny Smith-Pierce, who runs Eldershare the Arts, and it's an improv game called Pass the Smile or Pass the Face. And that's the photo, one of the photos you're talking about, is it's really just looking at the person and smiling. And then if you've got a group of people, you can do it around a circle. So you can imagine a circle, and you turn to your left, smile to that person, and then they turn. And you can do it, with different emotions, and, can be surprise, which is a lot of fun. And it's just a really fun game. I do it a lot at conferences. You know, you always have this sort of awkward thing at a conference where everybody goes out and they kind of know each other, but they don't really know each other. And playing Pass the Smile around a table, you know, before you're having dinner is just, it's so fun. And that's an improv game we use a lot in the sessions that we do. And it's just really delightful. You know, and it can be a sound that you pass, or and again, with people with memory loss, they can be quite successful at this, even if they have reduced language ability. And it's really quite lovely to see. And there's one gentleman at New York Memory Center that's in quite late-stage dementia, almost entirely nonverbal, has one of his eyes is not, you know, doesn't really focus, and he will still play Pass the Smile. Now, it's the tiniest little, gentlest smile. You know, he barely will register, but I'll look directly into his eye, his good eye, and just smile at him, and he'll start smiling back at me. And so it's a really, you know, there's very few ways to connect with him. Sometimes we hold his hand while we recite the poem, but this playing Pass the Smile is a way, even in late-stage dementia, that there's a real strong physical connection, and I would even say, you know, a spiritual sort of connection. And playfulness, too. Again, it's so playful to play around passing a laugh or a smile, or even the big, you know, when you're scared, you know, the shock one, that's even funnier sometimes for people.
Well, and it's contagious. You know, it's just contagious. You set up an environment where, I mean, even if somebody, you know, is stubborn and doesn't want to get involved, it's almost impossible not to, because it's so comfortable and it just kind of melts across the room. You know, you can literally watch it. You know, this wave kind of take over people, and it's very, very, very fun to see. Now, in the book, you talk about, you know, memory cafes are big and dear to my heart. You talk about creating a memory arts cafe. Can you explain a little bit about that?
So that, again, is, you know, the concept of putting creativity at the center. And so the Memory Arts Cafe is structured exactly like a memory cafe. What we do with each one, which we hold these monthly in Brooklyn with my partner with New York Memory Center, and I've held them around the country as well, too, but we do monthly ones here. So each one has a guest artist, and so the socialization part that is kind of the hallmark of most memories or Alzheimer's cafes, you know, greeting people over, you know, snacks and drinks and stuff. We have a guest artist that people get a chance to talk to. You know, so it might be, maybe it's like a classical pianist, and you get a chance to talk with that person. And then in our Memory Arts Cafe, I interview the artist, and so I ask a few questions that kind of gets us to know about the artist, but then we open it up to everybody who's there, and everybody gets to talk and ask questions about the artist, and it leads to really wonderful discussions. And again, this is the same type of thing we do with the Alzheimer's Poetry Project, which is to open up the space to talk about, like in an example with Karen with trees, right? We're really, at the core of that, we're just talking about trees. And so this allows them to, you know, we've had a trumpeter talk about how he started, how he picked trumpet, and then he gave a demonstration of how to do the embouchure and create the first sound. He got people up, and they got to try that and see, you know, that it was quite difficult to get a sound out of the trumpet. And dancers, you know, talking about what inspires them. We recently had an African drummer, you know, that talked about why she had actually switched from being a doctor. She left being a doctor that's now doing drumming, which was an amazing story.
Oh, wow.
So she brings that whole sensibility and training as a doctor to her work in many different populations, but certainly with people living with memory loss as well. So that's the second part, is that interview and talking. And then they usually perform something short, so you get to see them do something. And then each session, which is the core of it and the highlight, is each session we create something new with the audience. So it might be with the drummer, we all passed out, she passed out all kinds of percussion instruments, and she got us on a rhythm, and she taught us a song that we sang with it. And we've had jazz singers. We created a song about, living in Brooklyn. And, so each one has the creation. One of the most beautiful ones was the dancer, choreographer Heidi Latsky, who works a lot with disabled people. And she taught us duets. And so she had us pair off, and then we mirrored each other. And then one of the people would shut their eyes, one of the people would shut their eyes and move, and the other person would move with them. And we were seated in chairs, so it was mostly upper body and arms. But it was just quite beautiful to see people just moving together as these couples. And it was, husband and wife and mother and daughter and grandmother and grandkids. And then she put on a piece of opera, really lovely, and we danced to that. So that was one of my favorite ones. And then we sometimes take field trips. So my favorite one was going to the Coney Island Aquarium and being inspired by jellyfish. And so we created poems and read poems about jellyfish, which led to Ola saying the amazing line was, "I wish that fish was on a dish because I'm hungry." So that was a great line. And that we did that in front of the jellyfish tank. So you can imagine it was this deep, deep blue color with dozens of these jellyfish just floating behind us. And so we do that quite a bit as well, go out and Brooklyn Botanical Garden, and we created poems about roses and got to stop and smell the roses. And so that's a Memory Arts Cafe. Just shifts the focus to always having a guest artist, always creating a new work of art.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I can't believe our hour is just about up here already, Gary. Time just flies talking with you, which is very, very fun. Anything that you want to cover that we haven't covered? We've got about 7 minutes left.
I wanted to give one more example of a way to work creatively with your loved one. This one is, so with the one with Karen, we asked questions around a topic, right? But this one, this was more of an oral history. And so this one was a gentleman, Jose Mondragon, in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And we had actually recorded a little commercial of one of the poems that the group created. And it was about animals, and I had one of the women was reading it. We used it to promote an event. And Jose came and sat next to us, so I was recording her. And he came and sat down, and he has a little dog that's his companion, so he was sitting with his dog on his lap and just watching us. And she finished up, and he and I started talking, and he started to tell me this story. He had all of his life had worked in the copper mines in New Mexico, and he told me this story, and I couldn't, the hair on my neck just started standing up, and I said, Jose, do you mind if I record this? And so in this technique, it's taking an oral history, so the person's talking about something that's important to them. I recorded it, and then I transcribed the words and shaped them into a poem, just lightly editing it. It's all his words. I didn't add anything or change it. I just made it a little more streamlined. So this is his poem, Copper Mines by Jose Mondragon. So he says, the rope was like a rope you would tie a horse with, about as thick as a quarter, to pull you up or down out of the mine. The whole thing came sliding down, I put my hands up against the board. Oh, God, that is all I say. They tell me I don't see myself. I was in a little hole about as big as my body, in the mine, in the chute. I held my breath. I passed out. They tell me I don't see myself. A bunch of water, blue copper mining water. It was running all around, dirt coming down the shaft. The board came down. I was standing to one side, looking up at the top, looking up to my partner. I could see his light. The dirt came down like snow. I stuck my head underneath the board. They put me on a stretcher. They brought me up the shaft. They had only one little cage. It could hold only 2 men. They put me in the cage, standing straight up on the stretcher. I passed out. They took me to the hospital. They put me in the freezer like I was dead. I said, God help me. They tell me I never saw myself.
Wow.
So that's his experience of being buried in the copper mine, and using that oral history technique to create a poem with your loved one could be very powerful. Working intergenerationally, you could see a group of students doing this with elders. That would be an incredibly powerful experience. And so again, the technique was just, he wanted to tell this story, and I recorded it and then transcribed the words, shaped them a little bit to give it, to make it a little shorter than the story that he told.
Wow, what a powerful poem, though. Very, very visual. You could just feel, very neat. Well, you are doing absolutely brilliant work, and I so much honor and appreciate all you're doing to make the world a better place. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on the show, and thanks for your support and everything you're doing. I'm going to be out in Minnesota out in October. We're going to be holding a training with the Minnesota chapter of the Alzheimer's Poetry Project.
Cool.
That we don't have the exact dates and stuff, but it'll be probably the October 6th or 7th, so people can watch out for that on the Alzheimer's Poetry Project website. And they can find out all about the book on Dementia Arts website that's around this new combining of arts.
And that's dementiaarts.com. And the poetry, The Alzheimer's Poetry Project, you can just Google that as well, Alzheimer's Poetry Project. And your book is both on Health Professionals Press and Amazon, as well as, I would imagine, can they purchase it off your site as well, Dementia Arts?
They can buy it from me, and I will come to their house and personally deliver it.
No matter where they are in the world.
That's not a real offer. I wish it was. But one of the things we do offer is online training for people, and that's been very successful at helping people to implement this, both family members and healthcare professionals. You can find out all about that on the websites as well.
Well, wonderful. Gary, let me know when you're coming to Minnesota. I'm going to actually be going out to Pennsylvania in October. I've got 3 speaking engagements out there, but I'd be more than glad to push that out on the blog. If you do a PR piece, for me to push out, I'd be more than glad to help promote that if I can do that for you in any way. You're doing fabulous work, and again, I thank you so much for all you're doing, and I hope you have a brilliant week.
Well, I hate to hear that our planes will cross like planes in the night, but I appreciate that, and we'll definitely keep your listeners posted. And thank you again for having me. It's a real pleasure.
Great. Thanks so much, Gary. We'll talk soon, okay?
Bye, Lori. Bye, everybody.
Bye now. I want to thank our listeners for the great conversation that we had earlier. I always enjoy our open mic. That I might start doing that as a platform on a more regular basis. We'll see how that goes. I do have something scheduled right now where both hours are booked, but it seems to be a need. So I think we'll be doing the open mic more regularly. In the meantime, have a absolutely wonderful, brilliant week, and visit alzheimerspeaks.com. If you're looking for specifics on some of the free venues we have, go to the About page. We'll talk to you next week. Bye now.
It's time to rethink, renew, and reimagine retirement. Hey everybody, Jared Sebesta here, host of Retire Repurposed. Now this podcast is about the non-financial parts of retirement, which many times can be even more challenging than the financial. We believe retirement is not the end, rather the beginning of what could be the most impactful, purposeful, and fulfilling season of a person's life. So don't retire, become repurposed. To listen now, search Retire Repurposed on your favorite podcast platform, Senior Resource, or Life Audio.